All right, UFC 318, Holloway versus Poirier, full card predictions. Starting from the early prelim opener to the main card, main event. We'll get right into it. I got some fights after the card from outside of this card that I'll talk about, but until then, let's just go straight through it. First fight of the card, Carli Judice versus Nicolle Caliari. I'm going Carli Judice. She's pretty decent. I think she arguably could have won her last three fights. She obviously won her last fight with a head kick knockout over Eunice Duben. And then she had two split decisions against Arnessa Karakutta and Gabriela Fernandez. I think both of those fights, most people think she won, even though she lost split decisions. I don't think Nicolle Caliari is that good. I know she has more fights and is more experienced and also has like kind of a cleaner record. However, she also lost to Arnessa Karakutta by a split decision, and I think she more arguably lost. I'm going to go with Judice. Also, another thing to keep in mind, she is from Lafayette, Louisiana, which is where the fight is happening. Actually, no, I think it's happening in New Orleans, but it's in Louisiana. And so she's going to be hometown. And we also don't know a ton about Louisiana and their athletic commission. They may be super shitty. They may have really bad judges. I was looking at a few days ago the last UFC event in Louisiana, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was in 2015, I'm pretty sure. I think Tom Lawler was headliner, and there wasn't a lot of decision in that card. I think there were only two, and both of them were clear. So for all we know, this Louisiana could be like Texas, where it's like the judges are horrible, and they're always biased to the hometown fighter. So I'm gonna go with Judice, probably by decision. Next fight up the card, Bruno Ferreira versus Jackson McVey. I don't know a lot about Jackson McVey. This is his second time getting scheduled to fight. He was scheduled a few weeks ago. I think, was it at Atlanta? Maybe it was 316. I don't know, or 17. Yeah, I didn't watch a ton of his fights. They were kind of hard to find from before he got signed to fight in the UFC. But I do know that he was scheduled to fight the Ewart guy, and they were kind of even odds. And the Ewart guy was fucking horrible, and he was like visually horrible in his fights. And if you look at McVey's fought, he's only fought like kind of scrubs. So I'm just going to guess that McVey is also like, shitty looking. And I knew Bruno Ferreira is pretty good. One thing that concerns me is Bruno Ferreira was in the exact position of Jackson McVey when he came into the UFC. He's fighting like, he came in on short notice to fight Gregory Rodriguez, who's like a dangerous, pretty proven guy. And Bruno Ferreira fought him on short notice for his debut and knocked him out in the first round. So maybe there's a full circle moment, and that happens with Jackson McVey. But I think Ferreira is pretty good. I think a lot of people had questions about his gas tank and about his grappling. Everyone knows he's like a pretty good, a pretty dangerous striker. The main thing people complain about him is he's small for the division, and he's a lot smaller than Jackson McVey. However, in his last fight against Arn Petrosian, he showed some pretty good grappling. He got, I can't remember the position, but he was in a losing or in a decent grappling position. Then he jumped to his back for a triangle, and it looked stupid, but he got the triangle, and he got the tap, and he won the fight. So I don't think his grappling is that bad. I know he looked like shit against Abus, but I think Abus is a pretty bad matchup for him, and I think Jackson McVey is a much better matchup for him, especially when you consider the fact that Jackson McVey could be a horrible fighter. So, yeah. Next fight of the card, Ryan Spann versus Lukasz Brzeski. I swear to God, Ryan Spann, if you lose this again, I'm going to fucking flip it. Lukasz Brzeski is one of the worst fighters in the heavyweight division. Former 205er, came up to heavyweight because, or probably because he was just too shit for 205. The main thing I'm picking this fight on is if you saw Lukasz Brzeski when he was a 205er against Ryan Spann when he was a 205er, you're like, all right, if you're picking Lukasz Brzeski, you're a fucking idiot. And I think the reason why most people are picking Brzeski, or not most people, but like the people that are picking him, I think they're picking him because Ryan Spann looks so bad against Waldo Cortez Acosta. And, we've seen Waldo Cortez Acosta get robbery decision wins against Jared Vandera and Andrei Arlovsky. And, maybe Waldo Cortez Acosta actually is just kind of good. He beat Sergey Spivak, which is a pretty decent test. So I'm not hating, that loss. I know he looked like horrible, and he got rocked into a wheel kick and then got finished on the ground when he fell over. But I still have this agenda in my head that every 205er is better than every heavyweight at grappling. And I'm pretty confident that Ryan Spann is going to be a better grappler than Lukasz Brzeski, and he's had some good performances on the feet. He beat Ovince St. Preux like pretty impressively, rocked him with a 1-2, and then jumped the guillotine and got the submission. I know OSP isn't good, but OSP was coming off beating Kennedy Nzechukwu, who also went up to heavyweight and had a pretty decent run. So, yeah. I mean, also Ryan Spann, like, you know, he lost to Bogdan Guskov. Anthony Smith is a bad look. But, like, a couple of the losses, like Nikita Krylov, he has at 205, aren't that bad. Like, I don't think Lukasz Brzeski could ever beat a Krylov or a Guskov or something like that. So I'm not going to hold those against Ryan Spann going up to heavyweight. I just hope that he has, like, a turnaround that looks pretty good. If you watch the first round against Krylov that he had, I know he got submitted, I think, in the first round, but his grappling was looking pretty good. He was having some good scrambles, ending up on top in a couple of positions. I just don't think Brzeski's that good. You know, and what is his best win? Like, I guess Walter Walker's a decent win because Walker beat Nzechukwu. And, you know, has had a couple wins in a row. But Walter Walker is pretty shit and stupid. So I don't rate that win super highly. And also, Lukasz Brzeski did get, like, a robbery loss to Martin Bidet. But also Martin Bidet is pretty shit. So I'm going to go with Ryan Spann. I swear to God, if he loses, I don't really... if Ryan Spann loses this fight, if there's literally no reason to think when picking a heavyweight fight, just flip a coin. That's, like, honestly how it... Outside of the top 5, flip a coin, and that's your winner. Next fight up the card, Jimmy Crute versus Marcin Prachnio. Another strange fight. Neither of these guys have had, like, any good performances in forever. Jimmy Crute hasn't won a fight in, like, 4 years, which is this is a bad look. He's got 2 draws since his last win, which is rare at, you know, UFC level MMA. And the Marcin Prachnio always just kind of like, he looked horrible against Bukowskis other than landing 1 kick. Got submitted by Vitor Petrino. Lost to Felipe Lins. Like, some of these fights are so ugh. You know, obviously Marcin Prachnio, he's got a decision win over Roundtree where he just, like, put a striking clinic on. He's got that banger of a fight against William Knight. If you haven't seen that fight, go watch it. Marcin Prachnio versus William Knight, one of the best UFC fights of all time. Go watch that if you haven't watched it. But yeah, I mean, another blinder from Marcin Prachnio. But I just don't like his grappling. I don't know why the odds are so far apart. Like, Jimmy Crute is fucking horrible. Like I said, he hasn't won in, like, 4 years. 2 draws since his last win. And he's a minus 250 favorite against a guy who beat Khalil Roundtree, who was winning a title fight less than, you know, a year ago, who just beat a former champion in Jamal Hill. Little weird that Crute's such a big favorite, but I just think that his grappling is not so much better. I can just see him, like, taking down Prachnio and submitting him right away. But I think that Prachnio is a pretty good underdog, especially if you can get Prachnio by decision at, like, plus 500 or something like that. I would take that. I don't think he's going to finish Crute because Crute's pretty tough, and Crute's pretty good. Crute's pretty good at, like, kind of like Charles Oliveira, just getting rocked and, like, going to your back, going to your wheelhouse of grappling, just being like, okay, I know I have an advantage here. I'll shoot a takedown. I'll survive. I know we did shoot a really bad takedown against Menifield and get submitted. I just don't think that Prachnio is, like, strong enough or, like, athletic enough to capitalize on a moment like that. And I think that if Crute can get the fight to the ground, he should be able to get a submission, just because of how easily Prachnio is submitted by Petrino and Modestas Bukowskis. So, yeah. Next fight up the card. I'm going with Crute. I don't know if I said that explicitly, but yeah, next fight up the card. Adam Fugitt or Fugitt, however you pronounce it, against Islam Dulatov. Adam Fugitt is not very good at fighting. Islam Dulatov appears to be pretty decent. I don't think I've watched any fights of his other than his Contender Series fight, and that was, you know, impressive, I guess. It wasn't against the best opponent, but he got the finish. That seems to be what he does, finish fucking bums. But Fugitt, whatever his name is a bum. He has a loss to... I'm sorry, not a loss. He got finished by Michael Morales and Mike Malote. 2 people with alliterative M names, and 2 people aren't very good at finishing, in my opinion. I know Michael Morales has since finished Gilbert Burns, but between him finishing... Oh, I guess Neil Magny too, but, like, I don't know. I really... If you watch, like, the Jake Matthews fight with Mike Morales, you're like, how could Mike Morales finish anybody? He's not very active. He's not very explosive. And I know he's got power, but if you get finished by him, like, easily, I think that's a pretty bad sign. And I also think he's improved a lot. So, you know, I don't really think that, like, Burns is shit and Magny's shit. But I do think they're both washed. And I I think that them getting finished, I don't know if they would have gotten finished by like the older Mike Morales, basically, like the one that fought Fugitt and Giles and Matthews. So, and same as Mike Mallet, like he got to finish his last fight, but I also don't think he's that much of a finisher, and getting finished by him is a pretty bad look. If you look at who Fugitt has beat in the UFC, it's Josh Quinlan, who's horrible and has since been cut after losing 4 fights in a row, and he took him to a close split decision. He beat Yusaku Kinoshita, who I'm pretty sure has also been cut. He's the guy that got a body shot TKO'd by, what's his name? Billy Goff in the first round. And then, yeah, those are his 2 wins in the UFC. So he's beaten like the worst of the worst in the welterweight division. And Islam Dulatov, I don't think is that bad. So I think Dulatov will win. I don't know if he'll get the finish. I know I just talked about how Fugitt's getting finished by guys who, aren't very good at finishing. But I don't really think Dulatov is all that great either. So I can see like Fugitt stalling it out. You know what? Honestly, Dulatov's probably just going to finish him in the first round. Yeah, I'll take it all back. Dulatov's probably going to finish him early. Fuck it. Next, Fugitt. Next fight off the card, Ateba Gautier versus Robert Valentin. I'm picking Gautier. This is actually my pick for fight of the card, fight of the night. I think Valentin's actually pretty solid. I liked him on the Contender Series. I thought he looked well against the matchups that were good for him. Obviously, he looked really bad in the grappling against Ryan Loder and Torres Finney. And Ryan Loder isn't like the best loss to have, considering he just got whooped by Bakov and looked like a fucking amateur. But I don't think it takes a genius to tell you that Robert Valentin isn't the best off his back, not the best at getting up. But he's a pretty good striker. He's pretty explosive and dynamic, and gives you a lot of weird looks. He's kind of similar to Yuri. I'm not the first person to make that comparison, but yeah, I think he's pretty solid if the fight's going to be on the feet. And he's getting the first matchup in the UFC where it's like, oh shit, this guy's actually going to strike, and bang with him. And it's like a super touted prospect who's insanely good at finishing and insanely dangerous, insanely explosive, and fucking massive for the division. And Ateba Gautier. So, this fight's gonna be fireworks. I think it's gonna be a finish in the first round, or it's gonna be like a banger where they're getting rocked back and forth and barely surviving. But I think most likely is Gautier just kind of colds Valentin out in the first round. I said before, Valentin's got a style similar to Yuri, which. Yuri went on to be a champion, had a lot of success, but I think 205 is a very different game to 185. You can't really have that style against people who are just going to, stand in front of you and trade with you, who are more technical than you, unless you're really explosive and really dangerous, or actually have a really good chin. The only guy we've seen have success like that at the lower weight classes is Tony Ferguson, and he was kind of carried by just having a good chin, good recovery, and a good ground game to lean on. But if Valentin gets hurt here, I don't really know what he can do to survive other than weave his head kind of like Yuri does when he gets hurt, and just hope that fucking the other guy shoots a takedown on him. So yeah, I think if Valentin gets hurt, he's not gonna have the technique to survive or the ground game to survive. But if Gautier gets hurt, he can throw back and probably be more likely to land than Valentin. So I'm gonna pick Gautier to win. But again, I just hope this is a good fight because the rest of the card is kind of shit. Speaking of kind of shit, we've got Francisco Prado versus Nikolay Veretennikov. I think Francisco Prado is actually pretty good. My main complaint with him is him being at 170. I didn't realize he lost to Jamie Mullarkey. That's a pretty bad look. And I'll talk about that more later. But yeah, Prado, it's weird. He's not small for welterweight frame-wise. He's 5'10". That's kind of a slightly below average welterweight. And he's pretty broad for his frame. He's got a big head. He's wide. He's got thick legs. And you might be like, oh, it's not that small of a welterweight. But his reach is 69 inches, which is that's what, a 5'9" reach. That's 5'9" reach is pretty fucking small for welterweight. Especially when you consider his opponent, Nikolay Veretennikov, is 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. I don't know. That's pretty small. But I think I'm going to go with Prado anyways, because I just don't think Veretennikov is that good. I rated him pretty highly and picked him in his last fight because of his performance against Danny Barlow. But I rewatched that fight, and honestly, both of them just looked like dog shit. Barlow looked horrible. He was swinging for the fences and missing everything. And Veretennikov wasn't landing shit. He was just landing a couple outside low kicks and jabs. So, that was a horrible performance. And then He also lost to Austin Vanderford in his last fight, and Austin Vanderford is shit at fighting. He's mainly known for fucking Paige Van Zandt, which, isn't the best look when I'm trying to read you as a technical fighter. So I'm going to go with Prado just because I kind of trust his resume a little more. Like, I don't hate a loss to Zellhuber. I don't hate a loss to Jake Matthews, especially after Matthews' last fight. I don't like a loss to Jamie Malarkey, but that was... he was 21 in that fight. He's 23 now. He's young. He's improving. If you're young and improving, stick in the correct weight class. What's going to suck for Prado is he's 23, but if he loses this fight, he's going to get cut. But if he stayed at 155, he wouldn't have to worry about fighting guys that are bigger than him. He could have got like a Michael Johnson matchup or something like that, which he's more likely to win, and then stay in the UFC. But if he loses this fight, he's going to get cut at 23, and his career's going to be like fucking over. He's going to be 12-4 at 23. Like, that's pretty shit. So I hope Prado wins. I'm going to pick him to win because I think Veretennikov is just not very good. But Prado, if you win this fight, if you hear this, go back to 155. You are a natural 155er. You are too small. Like, you are getting height mogged and reach mogged by Zellhuber, and Zellhuber is a weight class below you. Like, what are you doing? That's like he got outreached and out-heighted in a fight that he wasn't, like, technically worse at. He wasn't too slow. He wasn't, like, well, he was a little too slow, but he wasn't, like, so shit that he needed to go up a weight class. It was, he lost because he was too small, and then he goes up. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Prado, please win this, and please go back down to 55. Next fight of the card, Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen. This fight is not on the main card. Why? Two ranked guys, put it on the main card. UFC, use your fucking brain. I'm picking Brendan Allen. I'm a little worried about him gassing. I really did not like his performance against Nassourdine Imavov. He looked really good in the first round, super good grappling, and whatnot. However, he gassed in the second and third and looked like shit. But then again, there was that controversy with like the IVs or some shit like that. Imavov and Benoit Saint-Denis at that event were able to get... I don't remember what happened because when this fight was going on, I was in the middle of a hurricane. So I kind of missed all the drama from the week. But I saw the fight and I didn't like Allen's performance with this gas tank. But I just think he's technically a lot better than Vettori. Vettori did lose to Dolidze in his last fight, according to the judges and according to, I guess, most people. It was a pretty close fight. But yeah, Vettori took a ton of time off, and he looked worse when he came back, which is just not a good look. Brendan Allen, I think, is at least improving. He's younger, and again, he's from Louisiana, and he could get that hometown cooking with the judges. So I'm gonna go with Brendan Allen. Yeah, I think he has a grappling advantage. I think he's probably, I don't know if I would say better on the feet because I feel like he's more likely to get finished, and maybe if it was a kickboxing match, he'd lose. But I feel like he does more on the feet. Vettori's a lot of 1-2s, step up, low kicks, not a lot of dynamicism. Whereas I can see Brendan Allen going 1-2s, low kicks, maybe a body kick with the lead leg, maybe an uppercut, maybe a lead hook every once in a while, which you don't really see out of Vettori. And I also could see Allen just taking down Vettori and submitting him. I could also see Allen just for some reason chinning Vettori, even though it makes no sense. That's just kind of how middleweight works. So, yeah, I'll pick Brendan Allen, reluctantly, I guess. Next fight up the card, Phillips versus Vinicius Oliveira. I think this is a pretty clear fight to pick based on the matchup. If you watched Kyler Phillips' last fight and his fight against Raulian Paiva, he did this thing where he very clearly won the first round, and then he very clearly lost the second and third round because he was out of breath for the entirety of the second and third round. And if you watched all of Vinicius Oliveira's fights in the UFC, with the exception of the Ricky Simon fight, the Said Nurmagomedov fight, and the Bernardo Sopaj fight, or Sopaj, whatever you pronounce his name, the same thing happened. He lost the first round. He got out-grappled by Sopaj. He got out-grappled by Said. He kind of got outstruck by Said too. But both of them gassed after the first round and then lost the second and third. Sopaj getting finished in the third because of Vinicius being able to break them and keep the pressure on and make them gas and take advantage of them when they gas. Pause. Sopaj, I'll give him a little break. He did gas because he took the fight on like 8 days' notice. However, Sopaj, I think, actually has a pretty good gas tank, according to his last fight, and I actually think he's a pretty good grappler. So I'm going to kind of, highly rate Vinicius Oliveira's performance in that fight, despite the circumstances. And yeah, like Kyler Phillips, he's going to gas in the first round. And if Vinicius is all there, every time someone's gassed in the first round against him, he's gone on to beat them in the second and third and win. So yeah, I think it's a pretty clear matchup. I can see Kyler Phillips maybe finishing Oliveira early. He did get dropped by Saeed. And I think that Kyler Phillips might be a more technical finisher than Saeed, maybe with a guillotine or a, some submission or something. But I mean, he hasn't finished anyone in forever. He finished Marcelo Rojo, or Royo, however you pronounce his name, 3 years ago, and that was his last finish. So yeah, I'll pick Vinicius to probably either a really late finish, like second half of the third round TKO, or a decision winning the second and third. So there's that. I will say he's a favorite. If you're gonna bet on this fight, I would wait for him to lose the first round, and then bet on him like live odds if he's an underdog in the second and third. Vegas probably knows that, so I don't know how much money you'll be able to get off, but if he's like plus 300 in the second round, I would hammer the odds on that, unless you got like 10-8 in the first. And also a draw on this fight. If you can get like draw odds like plus 2,000, this is a good fight for a draw, because Kyler Phillips might 10-8 him in the first round and lose the second and third, like he did to Holloway and Paiva. That fight should have been a draw, but whatever. I'll move on. Next fight of the card, onto the main card. Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber. Why is this fight over the last two? Who knows? I'm picking Zellhuber. I don't know why the odds are so wide. Zellhuber is kind of hittable, and he's got good recovery, but he was kind of chinny. He didn't get hit that clean against Esteban Rubic, and he lost his legs for the whole round. And I can see a veteran like Michael Johnson just, not gassing himself out, not gassing out his arms by throwing the whole kitchen sink at him like Rubic did, and maybe going to the body and like finishing him. However, I think that if you do this fight 100 times, Zellhuber wins probably 75, 80 other times, just by keeping Johnson at the end of his reach and kind of beating him up. I could see Zellhuber finishing Johnson, because Johnson, has a propensity to get finished by good fighters, and Zellhuber's pretty clean. I can see him hitting like a 1-1-2 and then step back 3, something like that, or a 1-2 step back 2. Just catching Johnson coming in with some good clean boxing. They were getting into it at the press conference, so maybe there's going to be some animosity from Johnson. Comes out with some heat and opens himself up to get countered. But I think most likely scenario is that Zellhuber just wins a pretty clear, clean decision. Maybe gets hurt once but survives. Yeah, I like him with knees up the middle and elbows. I think it's a little bit of an underrated part of his game. A lot of people see him as a tall, jabby, leg kicky kind of fighter. But if you watch him against Rubic, he's got some cool openings for elbows on the inside, and he landed a lot of good knees in that fight and the fight against Prado too. And Johnson he doesn't like leave himself open to that, but his style of like ducking in and swinging overhands leaves him open to knees and elbows. So that's a stylistic favor for Zellhuber. All right, next fight of the card, Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. This one's hard to pick. I don't know. It's the question really is, how washed is Patricio Pitbull? I don't know. Dan Ige is a favorite. I'm a little surprised because Ige hasn't had the best performances of his career recently. He didn't look very good against Lerone Murphy. I know a lot of people think he arguably won that fight, but if you watch the fight with your eyes, he very obviously won. I think it was rounds 1 and 2. Whatever round he didn't drop Lerone Murphy in. He got a knockdown, but that's not enough to win you the fight when it's a 3-round fight. And then Diego Lopez, he didn't look very good. That fight was on like 2 hours notice, but I don't know, he didn't look great in that. And then the Bryce Mitchell fight, the Josh Emmett fight, not very good looks. Pitbull's got some good performances in his career. I like the was it Jeremy Kennedy? Yeah, Jeremy Kennedy 2 fights ago. I thought he looked pretty impressive. Jeremy Kennedy isn't a slouch. Gave Volk kind of a tough fight. I think he fought Adam. I don't know. He's fought some pretty good guys in Bellator and looked good. But I don't know. I think Ige just kind of has a chance of like chinning him. We've seen Ige lose fights and then get finishes before. And I think this fight is going to be, if it goes to a decision, slight lean to Pitbull. But if there's a finish, I think that Ige is more likely to get a finish. Like if you see Pitbull's fight against Chihiro Suzuki, Suzuki's just an explosive guy. Like, I love Suzuki to death. He's one of my favorite fighters outside the UFC. But if you watch his fight against Doubtbeck, it's like he's not that good. Like, he did kind of nothing in that fight until the last, like, 45 seconds. And I think he probably, on my scorecard, would have won that fight. But he didn't look very good. He didn't look very technical. And he was able to find Ige's chin. I'm sorry, not Ige. Pitbull's chin in the first round. I'm trying to think. I mean, Gautier made Pitbull look like a total bum. Made Bellator look like shit. And the fact that Pitbull literally did nothing in that fight at all, except for get dropped, makes me kind of want to pick Ige. Like, every time there's a fight between a newcomer to the UFC and a veteran of the UFC, always in your head there's like, maybe Bellator is just shit and none of them are good, so I should just pick Ige. And I'm kind of thinking about that. Like, Patchy Mix looked horrible. Patricio Pitbull in his debut looked horrible. I know MVP, has won some fights, but his grappling looked horrible against Ian Gary. So I think if you combine all those factors, I think I give Ige like a 60-40 lean to who I want to pick. And it looks like Vegas thinks about the same way. So I'm going to go with Ige. But he could just be worse. Like, Pitbull has good performances against good fighters. Like, I think, Kleber Koik, that's a pretty, Kleber Koik's a little one-dimensional. But it's not a bad loss. I'm sorry, not a bad win. Kleber Koik has beaten Chihiro Suzuki. He's beaten other people. I'm drawing a blank right now. But Ige's pretty, whatever. I'm picking Ige. I've said enough. Thank you. Picking Ige. Next fight at the card, Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. I'm going Kevin Holland. He's a big favorite, and I kind of get why. Daniel Rodriguez is shit at fighting. He beat Santiago Ponzinibbio. Welcome to the club. So did Holland. Daniel Rodriguez literally went to a split decision with Alex Morono, who is dog shit. Alex Morono is like a women's MMA fighter, like level skill at 170. And if you're going to a split decision with him, that's a pretty fucking bad look. Lost to Kevin Gastelum. Horrible look. Got finished by Ian Gary. Got finished by Neil Magny. Just, I don't know. I don't think D-Rod is that good. I know Kevin Holland has had some stinker performances before. I know he's quit in fights before. Like, maybe not Dolidze. I guess he got into that fight, but I'm trying to think. Like, he didn't look good against Reynard Bitter, and he didn't, look good against Dolidze, and he didn't look good against Stephen Thompson. But those fighters are either pretty big 185ers or they're pretty decent. They're pretty high up in the rankings. At least they were at, some point. So I don't hate that. I like Holland at 170. I think he looked good against Gunnar Nelson. Who else did he fight? He fought Luque. He looked really good against Luque. I think Luque's got to be better than D-Rod, right? So I'm going to pick Kevin Holland to win this. I think he's got a grappling advantage. I think he's got a striking at range advantage. If this fight is like if Holland fights exactly how D-Rod wants to fight, just trading in the pocket, I could see him losing, maybe getting chin checked. But Holland's got a pretty good chin. He doesn't really get finished like that often. So I'm going to pick Holland to win, kind of however he wants, unless he wants to, win a in-the-pocket boxing match. It should be noted, D-Rod did go on the record saying he was 200-0 on the street. So, factor that into your prediction, however you may. But it makes me want to pick him a little bit. But I think I'm gonna pick Kevin Holland. Also, if you're ever curious on what year Daniel Rodriguez was born, just look at his chest. Next fight up the card. This is the co-main event. Jesus Christ, this event is pretty shit. I'll talk about it now, I guess. No better time, as good as a time as any. This is ridiculous that this is the co-main event. Like, this fight wasn't even supposed to be on this card. It's supposed to be on 317. There was a reality where Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez was the co-main event of a pay-per-view that doesn't have a title fight on it. I know there's a BMF, whatever. That's some bullshit. There's no BMF fucking... It's not a real belt. Holloway's coming off a loss. Poirier's coming off a loss. That's not a real title fight. This fight is a shitty co-main event on any pay-per-view, and this wasn't even supposed to be the co-main event on this card. That's how shit the card is. It's crazy that they're charging, $80, $90, whatever they charge for pay-per-views nowadays. You probably, if not paid the same, okay, let me word this correctly. UFC 300 either costed less or the same as this card, which is crazy. Like, the last card was pretty solid. It cost the less or the same as this card. It's fucking ridiculous. A little bit of a joke. The UFC is They always talk about people pirating their events. Like, why would anyone pay for this with real money if you could pirate it for free? I don't know. This is your shit card. That's what I'm trying to say. But Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. I'm picking Roman Kopylov. He's a favorite, and I get why. Paulo Costa, he's got a pop or whatever. He's dangerous. He's powerful. He's a big hitter. He's a good striker, maybe on paper. But if you look at the actual paper, he hasn't finished anyone since before UFC 229. The last finish was on UFC 226. He hasn't finished anyone since McGregor Habib. That's how long it's been since he got a finish. And he's being touted as the eraser, the big finisher. His only win, he's got 2 wins since then. He beat Yoel Romero in a fight that he arguably lost. And then he lost to Adesanya, and his only win since then is against Luke Rockhold, who's gone on to win no fights in MMA. So, super washed Luke Rockhold. Not a very good look, especially when Luke Rockhold had been washed, went up to 205, lost to Blachowicz, came down, took 2 years off, and then lost to Luke Rockhold. Lost to Paulo Costa. Pretty bad look that that's your only win in the last 5 years. Kopylov, kind of a different story. He's, if you looked at him 5 years ago, he wasn't as touted as Costa, perhaps. However, he's been looking pretty solid recently. Had a really good fight with Chris Curtis that he ended with a kind of bullshit stoppage TKO win, but he would have won anyways on the scorecards. The Cesar Almeida fight wasn't a great look, but Cesar Almeida is a really good striker, really dangerous striker on the feet, and he uses grappling to win a close decision. And I think Cesar Almeida could become something in the division. He's coming off a win against Abdul Razak Al Hassan, which was on the same card as Roman Kopylov versus Chris Curtis. So where is he? I guess he did get dropped in that fight. That's probably why he's not back. But yeah, and then he did have that loss to Anthony Hernandez. But I think Anthony Hernandez is probably the second or third best grappler in the division. One of the most dangerous guys on the ground. He's submitting a lot of people. So I don't hate a submission loss to him, especially when you consider that he was winning on the feet, and he was doing good neutralizing the grappling until he tripped in the second round and then got submitted. And yeah, I think Kopylov's really good. He got that head kick knockout against Claudio Ribeiro. I'm not going to read through his whole resume. You know who he is. I know who he is. He's a pretty good striker. And what the fuck is Paulo Costa going to do to him? Seriously, in your head, he fought Sean Strickland and he fought Robert Whittaker in his last 2 fights. Lost both of them, with the exception of the wheel kick against Rob Whittaker. Name one strike he landed in either of those 2 fights. I'll give you 5 seconds. Just think. And no, he did not land that leg kick against Strickland. That was checked. Think of another one. You can't. He can't. What the fuck did he do in those fights? What did he do against Adesanya? Okay? What did he do against... Vettori landed some good shit. I guess he landed a head kick and a couple good left hands. Other than against Vettori, since the start of the Adesanya fight, since the end of the Romero fight, name a strike he's landed, other than that wheel kick against Whittaker. Or anything against Rockhold, because he won that fight, doesn't count. Exactly. What is he going to do? Is he going to out-grapple Kopylov? Probably not. Who is he out-grappled? A 50-year-old Luke Rockhold. Okay, scratch that one off. Is he going to beat him on the feet? How? By decision or by knockout? Let's see. Who has he knocked out? Oh, no one in 8 years? Okay. Who has he beaten by decision on the feet? Again, Luke Rockhold when he was 50, and Yoel Romero in arguably a robbery, and Yoel Romero was also 40 and went on to never win again. Okay, not him. Oh yeah, he's not going to win. That's what's going to happen. He's going to lose to Roman Kopylov because Kopylov is a good technical striker who hits hard and is dangerous. Costa can't just run towards him and disregard his chin. I think that Kopylov either finishes him late or wins by decision. I'm interested to see where Kopylov goes after this fight, and to see if Costa gets cut after this fight. Honestly, I can see Costa losing this fight, getting cut, and then going to BKFC or Karate Combat or some shit. Not to celebrate his funeral before he dies, but I don't really see how Costa wins this fight. Yeah, I guess that's the extent of the conversation. I don't remember why the fight got delayed. Was it a visa issue? I don't know. Whatever. I'm thinking Kopylov. Yeah. Next fight on the card, main event, Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier 3. The trilogy. Dustin is up 2-0. Won the first fight by a mounted armbar, or it was a mounted triangle. Forever ago. I think most people accept the fact that can probably be ignored when calculating your prediction for this fight. Their last fight was a little more recent. It's weird. I think the distance between those 2 fights, their last fight and their current fight, and the first fight and their last fight, I It's about the same. I bet their first 2 fights are closer than this one is. But the other one feels so much more recent because of COVID and everything. But close fight. Poirier won on the scorecards, all 3 of the judges' scorecards. But I remember when I watched that fight, I was like, oh, Holloway definitely won that originally. And then Holloway lost, and I was like, oh, it's a robbery. But I've rewatched it recently, and Poirier pretty clearly won 1, 2, and 5, in my opinion. But it was a close fight, and it wasn't that long ago. And when you're predicting fights from rematches, when it was a close fight, what you got to do is, 1, is one of them very likely to get a finish? And 2, if not, who has improved more, because they'll probably win. So, is one of them likely to get a finish? Interesting question. I think maybe. But I think probably not. I think there's less than like a 30% chance of a finish. At least unless the fight is like, when I say finish, I don't mean like, whooping the other guy and then, TKO him in the 5th round. I'm talking about like, you're losing the fight, but you win because you got the finish. And I don't really think that Poirier is super likely to finish Holloway with like a flash knockout. I know Holloway did get chin for the first time in his last fight, and that usually spells bad things. For your chin in the future. However, he didn't get put out cold against Poirier. He just got knocked out, landed on his back, and then the fight was over. He was conscious. He was, upset when it happened. And I don't think Poirier is just gonna, slip a punch and then knock him out. If you look who Poirier has finished recently, I think it's just been. Well, I guess he submitted Michael Chandler. But I don't know if grappling's gonna be a huge thing in this fight. So I'm not going to include that a ton in my prediction. But he finished Benoit Saint-Denis in his last knockout, his last win. And he did that because Benoit gassed really badly. And I don't know if he gassed because he had staph, but he lost because he gassed. He was winning the first round. And when I think about it, with the exception of the Chandler fight, Dustin Poirier hasn't looked that good recently. He looked decent against Oliveira, but he did get finished and lose. He didn't look very good against Gaethje. He was getting outstruck, and then he got head kick knocked out. And Benoit Saint-Denis was losing the first round, but he got that knockout. He got the win. And then he looked decent against Makhachev, but he didn't. Again, he got finished and lost. So when we talk about who's improved more, I think that the recent performances of Poirier shows that he's kind of regressed a little bit. And then I think Holloway has gotten better or stayed about the same. I don't know if he's regressed at all, but I don't know that he's improved a ton either. But as far as as a fighter, I don't think he's improved a ton. However, as far as this matchup goes, I think he's improved a lot. And the reason why is because after the Poirier fight, Holloway fought this guy named Alexander Volkanovski 3 times. And Alexander Volkanovski is a very skilled striker who is a similar style to Poirier. Not similar as in, he likes to use a lot of head movement and box, but when it comes to his offensive attacks, Volkanovski and Poirier use the same exact offensive attack for a significant amount of their big strikes, which is the 1-2 switch stances 2. And Holloway has trained for that in 3 different training camps. And I know that Volkanovski mainly does it out of orthodox. However, he did it out of southpaw a couple times. I'm sure Holloway trained for it. And Poirier has, since their fight, used that as his main weapon significantly. He did it a lot against McGregor, he did a lot against Chandler, did a lot against Gaethje in their first fight. So, yeah, I think that Holloway's prepared a lot for Poirier's biggest move over the last, 5 years, however long it's been since the first Volkanovski fight. And I think that with the exception of that, that was a big point scorer for Poirier throughout, most of the recent part of his career. And if Poirier isn't able to use that big point scorer, what is he going to be able to use other than getting in the pocket and trading, which has been his other, winner, I guess. And I don't really know what that would be. He doesn't use kicks super well. He doesn't have great offensive grappling. He doesn't, do what Volkanovski does good, which is jabs and step-up low kicks and good work on the outside. So I think that if Poirier wants to win against any striker, he's going to use that combo, and he's going to use the inside boxing. And I think that Holloway is got a special set of skills to neutralize both, just because of those Volkanovski fights. And I also, against Ilya, he's obviously going to be training for that inside striking with the head movement and the slips and the feints. So his recent matchups, the 3 Volkanovski fights and the Ilya fight, have prepared him specifically for Poirier, with the exception of both those guys being orthodox fighters. So yeah, I think that Holloway's got a good matchup on the feet as far as like improvement has gone, and I don't think that Poirier is just going to go in and chin him. He always could. And again, when we're talking about the judges, obviously when Poirier lands, the pop is going to be way bigger, and it's going to be in Louisiana. And like I said before, we don't know what the Louisiana judges are like at a UFC event, at least in the last 10 years, you know. So I could see a bad decision towards Poirier. Holloway loses a lot of close decisions. He lost, you know, the first 2 fights to Volkanovski by close decision. He lost against Poirier by close decision in their second fight. So he could lose a close decision, but I think that odds are Holloway. Honestly, I think Holloway's going to put on a masterclass in the feet, maybe 4-1, 5-0, similar to the Gaethje fight. I think Gaethje is maybe a little bit better of a matchup for Holloway just because he doesn't have those tools that Holloway's trained for specifically. But I think that Gaethje's arguably like a less skilled striker than Poirier, and Holloway put a fucking blinder on him and, you know, whooped him. And Holloway's prepared for Poirier's 2 biggest point scorers. You know, Gaethje had the leg kicks, which Holloway hasn't prepared for a ton. But yeah, the boxing on the inside and the 1-2 shift 2 that Poirier does, Holloway's prepared for because of the Volkanovski fights. And I think that's going to be the difference. I just think that other than trading on the inside and maybe in the clinch, Poirier, and again with the clinch, like Holloway trained the clinch for the 2 Poirier fight and for the Volkanovski fights. So yeah, outside of trading in the pocket and in the clinch, it's going to be hard for Poirier to score points. And I think that Holloway's just got like the perfect matchup to neutralize him, and he's one of the best outfighters in the history of the sport. So best boxer in the UFC, we'll see. But I think this should be a good fight. I just don't know if it's going to be super close. And also, this is my lock of the card prediction. If you can find, I mean, I doubt you're going to find some props anywhere. What's going to happen is they are going to, at the end of the fight, Holloway's going to point to the center of the cage, and Poirier's going to point to the center of the cage, and they're going to trade, and fucking nothing's going to happen, okay? Because that Gaethje thing happened. You could do that with Gaethje 1,000 times, and he will knock him out one of the 1,000 times, and Gaethje will probably knock him out one of the 1,000. Like, just getting a knockout there is so rare. If it happens at the end, that would be fucking absurd. So if you can find on some sportsbook, they will trade in the pocket for the last 10 seconds or whatever, and nothing will happen except for maybe a couple body shots from each. Hammer that, because that is guaranteed to happen unless there's a finish early in the fight. So let me know what you think of my predictions. If you'll notice, this is on a newer channel. This is my second video on this channel, but I have all of my predictions throughout the whole year on a different channel on the playlist that this video will be on. If you don't know why, you can watch my last video where I explained it. But yeah, again, feel free to watch all my old predictions. Like, share the video, subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Link is in the description. All the things people normally say. What else? Again, comment if you agree or disagree. If you want to hear more about a certain pick. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about the picks from other cards. I'll do that quick because I've been a little long-winded. Picking Johnny Eblin over whatever the fucking South African bum he's fighting. I'm picking Dakota Dacheva over the bum she's fighting. I'm picking Usyk to beat Dubois. I'm picking Barrios to beat Pacquiao. I'm picking Pitbull to win. I'm picking Tim Tszyu, I would pronounce his name Tzyu, to win his fight. I'm picking Bam to win his fight. If you want to hear more about that, I think there's more fights. Check my Twitter. But again, that is all. Thank you for listening. Everything I said before, comment, like, share, subscribe. Yeah, that is all. Yeah, thank you for listening.